For Friday and Saturday in Bahrain, it looked like it might be another challenging weekend for Ferrari. Leclerc appeared to have got the hang of the new floor upgrades that Ferrari had bought. He finished in the top 5 in every session he competed in. Hamilton, on the other hand, was not having a good time. Qualifying 9th behind the Williams of Carlos Sainz and the Alpine of Pierre Gasly was definitely not where he wanted to be starting Sunday's Grand Prix. However, during that race, a shockingly good second stint catapulted him up the order to finish in 5th position. It is understandably taken time, but is Hamilton now finally starting to get to grips with his new Ferrari car? And was it a stern talking to by Fred Vasseur that managed to get him there? Today, I'll check it out, as well as the new Ferrari upgrades and how they're going to start focusing more on Hamilton with the car development. So, don't go anywhere. Starting 9th on the grid last Sunday, Hamilton probably thought that he was in for another pretty tough Grand Prix. Apart from that shock sprint race win in China, Lewis Hamilton has endured, I think you could probably call it a pretty torrid start to his life at his new team. A 10th place and a 7th place finish to go with his disqualification from China is hardly the fairy tale start that we were sold by the media before the season began. Do you remember all the talk of there being a 3-team title race with Ferrari, McLaren and either Red Bull or Mercedes? Well, apparently we all forgot that Ferrari are actually Ferrari. They fumbled their winter development and the car just hasn't been good enough so far this season. They aren't as fast as McLaren or Mercedes, or even Verstappen, who is somehow managing to get results out of a car which is at best 4th fastest and at worst probably in direct competition with the Hasses. However, in Bahrain, there were some signs of life. A new floor looked like an improvement, and especially in race trim once they made it through the first stint. But let's not get ahead of ourselves though. This is still Ferrari, and no one can kill their own momentum harder than the Ferrari F1 team can. But clearly, there are a lot of positives for them to take away from Bahrain. One of those is obviously Hamilton's performance during the Grand Prix. But I think it's important not to be blinded by that 5th place finish. This was still a very tough weekend for Lewis. His best qualifying lap was 0.9 seconds off the McLaren of Oscar Piastri, who was in pole position, and 0.6 seconds off his teammate Charles Leclerc. Now, after Japan, Lewis had said that the team had found something on his car specifically which they could fix for Bahrain and would immediately bring a 1/10 of a second of lap time relative to Leclerc. Now, considering the average gap between the two teammates across the first 4 qualifying sessions, which includes China Sprint, had been 0.048 seconds in Leclerc's favour, that 1/10 of a second should in theory have given him an advantage. Obviously, that theory was pretty quickly disproven in qualifying in Bahrain. Now, although Hamilton was at a loss to explain the deficit to Leclerc after the session, his telemetry provided some answers, or at least showed where he was losing out. Through the first 6 corners of the lap, he was matching his teammate before losing just a fraction of a second into turn 7, and then more than 0.2 seconds in the slow speed turn 8. Leclerc managed to carry 4 km an hour more speed through turn 8 and again through turn 10, resulting in a 0.3 second lap time advantage over Hamilton on the back straight toward turn 11. He was then 10 kph faster than Hamilton through turn 11 and 12 faster through turn 13, the combination of which resulted in another 0.25 seconds in Leclerc's favour. And when you actually look at the laps, surprisingly there's no lockups or snaps of oversteer to account for Hamilton losing that 0.55 seconds across those 4 corners. He was just not as fast as Leclerc. But obviously there has to be a reason for that, which I will get to. We all obviously know that Leclerc is one of the best hot lappers in the sport. But still, Hamilton didn't go and win 7 world championships by being that bad in qualifying. So what happened on Sunday then, and does it maybe explain why he was so bad on Saturday? Well, all the positives for Lewis came after his first pit stop. Ferrari survived on the medium tyre, extending their stint compared to all the soft tyre runners which are around them on the grid, and that meant that for the second stint they had much fresher rubber, which is when they went on the attack. Now, on his second lap back on track after his pit stop, Hamilton set the fastest lap of the race up to that point, and over the next 8 laps overtook 5 cars to move up to 6th place. As a measure of the pace that he was able to find in his second stint, Hamilton had a 16.7-second deficit to George Russell in second place when he rejoined after his pit stop, which had shrunk to 11.3 seconds by the time the race was neutralized by a safety car on lap 32. And now, that was Russell in clean air as well, while Hamilton was having to make overtakes, and they were both on the same compound of tyre. It was an absolutely rapid 14 laps from Hamilton, but 14 laps don't make a Grand Prix. However, considering the tough start that Lewis had had at Ferrari, you've got to take the positives where you can. So after the race, Hamilton took some time to talk about the differences between his Ferrari car and his Mercedes car as well, which obviously there's a lot of them. Now, he did say that over the weekend he started to understand the differences more and more, and it's the first time that he's really had that realization, and it almost seems like something flipped a switch after qualifying on Saturday going into Sunday's race, which is why he had that incredible middle stint, because he was finally starting to understand how he was meant to be driving the car. One of the more interesting things he said was, "I've been using engine braking with Ferrari, which we never used at Mercedes, and much different brakes. We're on Brembos, and I've been using CIS for the last 15 years or so. This car just requires a much different driving style. I've been adjusting to that, and I think I've been slowly getting it into my head." So, brake manufacturers might sound like an odd point for Hamilton to get caught up on, but it does make a massive difference to how you drive the car. The difference with the driver's input on the brake pedal between braking absolutely perfectly or braking too early or too little or locking up is absolutely minuscule. And finding that perfect braking point and the feel for it as well, and the pressure that they need, it's so much muscle memory and instinctive feel for the drivers. Hamilton's body doesn't understand how these Brembo brakes feel. It's used to the old Mercedes setup, and after over a decade of building up those neural connections and reinforcing them over time, it's really hard to rewire his reflexes to that new brake feel, and understandably, it's going to take a lot of time. Hamilton admitted that he still has a long way to go to be able to match up to his teammate in how they both handle this car, but apparently he's learned a far more than expected by just observing how Leclerc goes about his setups over the weekend. His new team principal Fred Vasseur said that he'd enjoyed seeing Hamilton suffer rather than just shrug off his poor performances. He said that it showed that Lewis was ready to work hard and improve the car and himself, but he also said that he'd been putting pressure onto Hamilton to make sure that he still wanted to improve. "I did my best to push him a little bit, and today he was in very good shape and a very strong shape. I think the race time compared to the top 2, top 3 is almost similar. For me, it was okay, and today he was very strong and consistent. There is still work for Hamilton to do, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But Ferrari have now said that they'll work with Hamilton on the car to help him find improvements." So following a frustrating Japanese Grand Prix, Ferrari's drivers openly called for updates to keep pace with McLaren, with Red Bull and with Mercedes. Leclerc teased that new components were imminent, and Ferrari delivered in Bahrain. They unveiled a major upgrade package centered around a revamped floor. Ferrari's technical briefing, which is that little brief summary document that you see from the FIA every now and then about what upgrades are coming and what they're meant to do. Well, that said that the tweaks aim to minimize downstream losses for better aerodynamic flow. Basically, the new floor was just an overall downforce improvement, but with a particular focus around improving downforce at the back end of the car, which is an area that Hamilton and Leclerc had both been heard complaining about. Considering the results in Bahrain, the improvements seem to have worked. They was Ferrari's best race of the season so far. However, Leclerc said that there was still work to be done. "We'll understand our upgrade better in Jeddah next week. I look forward to finding out what we will learn about it there. A baby step, but we need many baby steps before getting to where we want. As I said at the beginning of the weekend, we need to be cautious. We brought that upgrade here, and this is not the best track to extract the maximum out of that upgrade. And I'm sure that next week we'll be extracting a little bit more performance out of this upgrade." That's an interesting little tidbit from Leclerc there. The super high-speed circuit of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix has a lot of medium and high-speed corners, and the added downforce of the new floor will, in theory, allow the Ferrari drivers just to keep their foot in a little bit more, which is super important around a track like that. And while that's great for Leclerc, obviously it is still going to take time for Hamilton to adapt. One good stint doesn't mean that he now knows the ins and outs of this car perfectly, and he's still going to need the help of Ferrari to get the best out of it as well. To help him, Fred Vasseur has said that Ferrari are going to work to get the car to match up better to Hamilton's personal style. We'll work on the car to adapt the car to Lewis, but he also has to do a step. And I think this, between us, is done in a positive way and a very constructive way. Look, at the end of the day, it's been a pretty tough start to the season for Hamilton. I popped into the Lewis Hamilton subreddit after qualifying, and the fans were basically in complete meltdown, saying that they were finally accepting that Hamilton was washed and that he's too old to be good anymore, and they just need to enjoy the good old days and stop watching F1 completely now that Hamilton's rubbish. It was kind of chaos, actually. But then, after he finished 5th on Sunday, and it was all positivity, and it was posts telling people to stop being so negative and support him better because he's the best of all time and stuff like that. It's Hamilton, so opinions and reactions like that are always going to be kind of all the way one way or all the way the other. For whatever reason, opinions around him seem to be incredibly volatile and dynamic. But if you're a Hamilton fan watching this, just know that everything seems to be moving in the right direction. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of hard work to get him anywhere near that 8th World Championship yet, but things are going the right way. But what did you think of Hamilton's performance in Bahrain? Do you think he's moving in the right direction now with Ferrari? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.